So we are lucky to be joined by an amazing group of instructors who will bring their own unique perspectives and experience to the practice. First, we have Natalie Morales, so a founder of Vinyasa Yoga in Miami, who has built a practice centered on accessibility and joy with adaptive chair and wheelchair classes available. We also have Jane Barber, um, and we have is that Ivashi there too? Hi. And both are yoga instructors at Spalding Rehab who have worked closely with many people in the SCI community. So together they'll be sharing their stories, expert tips for technique, favorite gear recommendations, and ways yoga can support both your mind and your body. This is and always is a very dynamic and interactive conversation. So please feel free to add your questions and thoughts in the chat or just jump in. You can raise your hand or literally just jump right in to the discussion. But with that, let's get started. Natalie, Jane, and Ivashi, thank you so much for being here. Maybe we can start by you guys just going around and introducing yourselves and maybe tell us like a little bit about your current like classes that you offer. We'll start there. Jane, would you like to start?
Sure, sure. I've been involved with the adaptive sports community for over 20 years. I started as an adaptive ski instructor, and I am a practicing yogi, and I found that I wanted, particularly in the height of the winter season, more stretching. And I was in the middle of a veterans event in Keystone, Colorado, and I thought, wow, if I want this, I'm sure our adaptive athletes want it as well. So I got certified just in your basic 200 hours, but I was able to build on my experience of teaching adaptive skiing to enhance my program. I teach in a variety of places because I live in a variety of places. Um, but that makes sense, right? We are all moving around, and yoga is so portable, right? So you can do it like anywhere. So I'll explain to you. I got to know Megan before she came to the Kelly Breast Foundation. She was an intern and then a staff member at SASI, Adaptive Sports. And we have a wonderful, wonderful satellite in Cape Cod in the middle of a state park. And I really like Spalding's model where they take the acute phase that then goes to the outpatient phase that then goes to the sports phase to enhance mobility, but I see it mostly as enhancing building community, right? Living in your new normal. And the staff and the interns build this beautiful yoga studio right on the shores of a pond, right? And it is chair yoga primarily. Some do get to come up to standing. Most of our clients that utilize the McGraw Center have a difficult time getting down to the ground. My philosophy in teaching yoga has largely been informed by a gentleman that created Mind Body Solutions. His name is Matthew Sanford, and he believes that yoga is about moving energy, and it doesn't matter what the pose looks like. It doesn't matter what the physical expression of the pose is, but if you know what alignment is, you know what the functional intention of the pose is, and you know what the energy movement intention of the pose in. Every yogi, regardless of their physical presentation, can access incredible energy and incredible benefit. So that's how I kind of guide my practice. I'm sure, like all adaptive yoga instructors, it's all about the props. No props too many. Uh, More props, the better. And I think I'll leave it at that. We only have an hour, and I think I've said enough.
And we'll certainly come back to you. Thank you, Jane.
Hey, thank you for coming too. It makes me
Yeah,
happy
my
to see you
pleasure.
on the call.
Yeah, Megan's one another thing I'll say is that I'm at a phase in my life when I got trained in yoga maybe 10 years ago, I think that adaptive yoga was very, very much not a thing. And now people are asking me to come to their training. So, those of you that are the next generation, I'll do anything in my power to give you the knowledge you have so this great movement continues to grow and to thrive.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, I love that. Natalie, we'll pass it to you.
Thank you so much for having me on. Such an amazing group. I've been doing research about what you've done and what you do, and I've done research on you, Jane, and I do know about Spalding. I live here in Miami, and I've been in the yoga world for about 40 years. I started when I was a teenager, and in 2009, I opened a yoga studio in Coconut Grove. And I knew from the very moment that I opened it that I wanted to have a chair yoga class because I had taught yoga to old timers, to seniors at an assisted living facility. And it was one of the uh, most exhilarating and rewarding classes I've ever taught. And eventually I got to meet Woody Beckham, who was a recent he had recently had a spinal cord injury, kind of a high injury. I forget exactly what location, but he had a foundation. He still has a foundation, although the name has changed. And through him and through that experience, we started a yoga class at our studio that was free to the public, but it was sponsored by his foundation. And by meeting him, I was introduced to this whole community. You used that word, Diane, the whole community here in Miami and in South Florida, that a community of different foundations that all have a shared mission to make life more accessible for people that have had brain or spinal cord injuries or for anyone facing paralysis. And we have a really cool network of different organizations that are designed to do just that. One of them is Shake a Leg Marina, which was founded in 1990, originally out of New England. And Shake a Leg specializes in getting people with spinal cord injuries out on the water. So they have all kinds of marine events. And Coconut Grove really is the sailing capital of Miami. We have lots of water, as you know. Miami's famous for a lot of things, but until you really get out on the water, you don't see it at its best. And through Shake a Leg Marina, I was introduced to a group of sailors and to a particular the crew of a particular boat, the Impossible Dream catamaran. And they do, so Megan is nodding her head, and it's on the side of the Impossible Dream where I first saw the logo for Spalding Rehab, because the Impossible Dream is a foundation. It was created by an amazing woman who had a spinal cord injury, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. And she did her healing in Miami at Shake a Leg Marina, through all their adaptive programs. And she decided, that she wanted other people to experience the healing benefits of being on the water. So that foundation that she created with the Impossible Dream catamaran, it's a 60-foot, totally wheelchair accessible boat. I mean, it was designed from the keel up this way. You can't retrofit a boat. As you know, I'm speaking to the choir here. You can't retrofit a boat to make it really accessible like this one is. She's an amazing boat, and they do a summer sail every year from Miami up to New England. And Spalding is one of the groups that they work with. They visit all kinds of different rehab centers and veteran centers, and uh, different groups that would otherwise not be able to get out on the water. People in wheelchairs, as you know, a lot of times they're uh, life can get closed down in terms of adaptive programs. So it's really eye-opening for me to see everything that you're doing with the Kelly Brush Foundation and your wide reach. I mean, it's incredible, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about it. What can I say? I think I've already been talking too much. I started that yoga class, that adaptive yoga class, wheelchair yoga class, in 2000, maybe 2011 or so. And we were doing it, free at the studio for years until COVID shut us down. Like everyone else, we had to, close our venue. That was 2020, and we've been doing the class online since then. So, so we still do it every Monday. We live stream, an adaptive yoga class. And I know, I mean, I agree, Jane, that props are really important. But a lot of times when people are just they just want to do a yoga class, it's somehow nice to do the kind of yoga where props are few. So we do typically a lot of breathing exercises, just in case, some people would say, oh, I don't have props to do this class, or oh, I'm just on my chair, I'm just sitting here waiting for, my friend to show up, and they might be on their phone and notice that a class is going on, and just see, the breathing exercises and the stretches that we do, and we do visualizations and meditation. And I mean, yes, I agree. I know Matthew Sanford as well, Minneapolis, right? Yeah, yes, I met him at an Iyengar conference, so the last conference that Mr. Iyengar did
Right.
in the States, in Estes Park, in Colorado. But I don't want to ramble on. What can I tell you? One of the reasons I got into doing adaptive yoga was because I just in the yoga world, I would hear people say repeatedly, yoga is for everyone. Yoga is for everyone. It's for everyone. And then I'm like, oh yeah. And well then what are you gonna why aren't there any people in wheelchairs in this class? Why aren't there people coming in walkers? Why aren't there, grandparents and great grandparents in this class? If it's really for everybody, then make it for everybody. Otherwise it's just a lot of talk. And once you have friends in chairs, or once one is in a chair, then you really see how much discrimination there is in terms of civic design and accessibility, especially in old cities, where they can grandfather in their inaccessible entrances, because people weren't thinking about people in wheelchairs, or even people with baby strollers, back in the day when they designed some of these buildings, of course. um, so um, universal design makes everything more beautiful for everyone. Uh, so
Thank you, Natalie, for sharing. It's a nice intro and nice to hear your
yeah,
experience. 10 years
yeah. Well,
behind.
thank you. I could keep on talking, but I'm going to
I
stop. I'm
love
going
that. No, I love that. And that's what these calls are all about. It's kind of fun to get the most like experienced people in the sport in one area because then you really hear all the not geek out on the sport, but you kind of geek out. It's fun to hear all the ins and outs of what people are really about. So, um, why don't we hear from Urvashi next?
Sorry, I was struggling to unmute for a while.
You're good.
Hi. It's so nice to meet like-minded people. Thank you, Megan. I know Megan very well.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
She's yeah. So thank you. I'm happy to be here. And just as an introduction, I'm a physical therapist, and I primarily work with patients who have neurological injuries, as well as people who have amputations. So my yoga journey, of course, a lot of people assume that I was taught yoga in India because everyone learns yoga, but that's not true. I didn't know anything about yoga. When I was at Spalding, and we had an older building, and I had an occupational therapist who, kind of started me on the journey more than 15 years ago. And so when I went to India next to visit, I said, oh, let me do a course on yoga. So I did a little bit of training there, and I came back and we started on a very small basis where I used to take my own patients and have them do some yoga on the floor, teach them to get up from the floor. And that's when I realized that, well, it's so similar to physical therapy where I'm training the patients to get to the floor, get back up from the floor. So like it's movement. So yoga is movement. Maybe I can adapt it for all patients, not necessarily just the ones I'm working with, which is when I was approached by the adaptive sports team in 2000, the dean of the new setup, and they wanted to start a class. But I was familiar with Matthew Sanford, and I just adored like how much he has done for the yoga world and patients. But that form of yoga was like you needed a lot of assistance from people, like volunteers, and you would have to get. And in the hospital, it's all about safety. So you have to be safe. You have to. The patients cannot fall. The patients cannot get injured. And so, okay, but how will we have that safety for neurological patients without having someone, be there with them? And we do not have that kind of manpower for one-on-one, support. So we said, okay, let's come up with a plan where all patients can participate. And so we decided that, well, patients who are even on wheelchairs, or patients using walkers and are not able to walk long distances, or patients who would like to do yoga but in a chair format. So we, stuck to the format and said we'll just do all the yoga on the chair. So we kept it as chair yoga for accessibility for all patients, whether it's patients who have spinal cord injuries, strokes, brain injuries, amputations. And if there were people who were able to do it in standing, they were welcome to do it in standing at home or in person. At that time, it was all in person, but of course, after COVID, it's all virtual now. So, as I was learning, I learned even from the patients. And of course, I put myself through a yoga teacher's training over here in the US also. So, it's both. And using sometimes my PT hat and sometimes the yoga hat, I try to like modify the poses based on my audience in the room. So I'm lucky at Spalding. I have a lot of support from the adaptive sports team, who give me a head up. They take the intake form, and I know what the piece coming in for and so automatically, like, I'm mindful of the instructions if I know that some have uh, so impatient. I think I'm just seeing. Okay, okay.
Okay, got it.
No worries. I just saw, Jeff, I just saw your message too. So, right during this call, we do just some education on the session, and I love hearing all these intros. It's so nice. And I'm sure some of these instructors can give some tips on where to participate. During this hour session, though, it's not a guided yoga session. So sorry for the confusion on that part too. But I'm happy you're here too. Urvashi, I lost you at the end of that. I think your Wi-Fi cut out. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, so I just wanted to say that even if you are, on a wheelchair or chair, you can do yoga from there. I mean, I know that Spalding has a great yoga team. In fact, they're offering, so there was a generous donor, so we have yoga offered for free every day of the week. So, if you want to come in, but you can do it virtual from home. We still don't have the in-person option. We did try it, but people prefer to do it from home so they don't have to pay for the parking, or they don't have to worry about getting the ride to come into the hospital building. Having said that, that is in the Boston location. They also offer adaptive sports yoga to the Cape Cod location. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they have that in the south of Boston too, and also on the North Shore, which is another location. So all our Spalding locations have some form of yoga being offered to the community members. So I'm sure you can, reach out, see which is offering the adaptive yoga style, and you can participate in those yoga sessions. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me.
Thank you. And thank you for all three of you for those introductions and sharing a little bit about how you got into yoga and your experience. I have a question, just like what are some poses or practices that some you recommend as a starting point for wheelchair users or some people with limited mobility?
Could could I
I think it's frozen.
could I ask Jeff to ask what he looks for in
Yeah.
Yeah,
vis-a-vis?
that's a great question.
You unmute.
Oh, sorry, Jeff, you're muted right now. There you go.
There you go.
Oh no.
Hi, good.
I've taken able-bodied yoga classes and did not gain much because I was in my chair and everybody else was on the floor.
Right.
And I've read some books on it um, and tried to adapt my own little routine that I shared with a bunch of wheelchair users on a 3-week raft trip on the Colorado River.
Nice.
So I want to get smarter about this. I appreciate all your introductions and I am enthused about it, but I want to expand what I know about it. So that's why
Where are you, Jeff? Where are you physically located?
Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Right. Megan, and Diane and Natalie and Urvashi, can he like can Jeff tap into the online yoga programs through Sassy?
I believe, yes, all the from for Spalding Adaptive Sports, all the virtual programming, you can log in across the country. So with the virtual resources available, anyone across the country can log in to those chair yoga classes, which is awesome. And it's pretty neat because if you're interested in ever doing any virtual programming, you have some really good instructors to guide you through that practice.
So
So how do I get into that?
I can send you some information and I can drop it in the chat right on this call, which would be great for
I'll
you.
also I'll drop a document in the chat just now that has a bunch of virtual options and a list of instructors and adaptive classes that you can click on the links on there.
Okay.
Because that's what I would recommend you do rather than talk about specific poses. We talk about in any sport, it's all about mileage, right? In skiing, it's about vert. In yoga, maybe it's about breaths or it's probably about breaths, but the more yoga you get exposed to virtually, the more you're going to integrate what works for you, Jeff, and you're going to find that you're going to be doing some stuff on your own. But the best benefit about yoga is practicing in community. So if you can get into some of these online classes, like for example, I'm so delighted to meet you, Risashi, because I hear all about you and I'm sure you hear about me and it's so fun. Yeah. And hi, Keelan. I met Keelan
Hey,
at,
how you doing?
yeah, I met him at the Sport and Spirit Camp, which is another program we have. Yeah. Hmm. So
Keelan,
that's
how are you? Do you
my
want to
input.
introduce yourself and share what you do with yoga and your experiences?
Keelan, I think we're talking.
Was that for me?
Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself? Share what you do, your experience with yoga.
Sure. My name's Keelan. Broke my back at T10, T11 in a motor vehicle accident. My last Asia was L3, so it's going in the right direction. Um, I started probably about a year ago, maybe a little bit less than that, with video yoga, generally Tuesday morning, through the VA. And then I met Jane, think that was what, beginning of June? And we
Right, right.
did in-person yoga out on the Cape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very nice.
May I
I think
chime in
that's
on something?
Of course, yeah.
a
It's
Yeah,
an
good
please,
open
Natalie.
discussion now that people have shared their stuff. So feel free to chat
I
and
didn't mean to interrupt you, Keelan. So someone was asking about a pose. Jane, you asked if there's a particular pose, and just as in any kind of yoga class, if you think of, whatever, like a normal yoga class, for like the ableist kind of yoga class, we use in standing, we use the mountain pose as a template for all other standing poses. Seated, we use the staff pose as a template for all of their, seated poses. Um, but I always like to start my class at, naming the seated pose that we're all in, whether, whatever kind of chair that we're in. And I, name it as the seated mountain pose. And, as you know, it's not about the pose. It's really about our reaction to the pose. So if we come at it like an activity, like any kind of, activity involving the body and the fact that we are, living, complex beings with a history and memories and plans and goals, if we put ourselves in that like physical place and visualize ourselves as we are in the seated mountain pose, and then we keep coming back to that pose, so it's like we name the pose that we're in so that we can use it as a template to move from, and we can use it as a blueprint to come back to, and
Natalie, could you get us into seated mountain, please?
yeah, may I?
Yeah.
yeah, of course, that'd be great.
Okay, so first of all, let me just say, you're perfect as you are. Visualize yourself as you are seated in your chair. And when I say visualize, I mean really imagine yourself three-dimensionally. Like you're creating in your mind a three-dimensional image of yourself as you are positioned. So it's a lot about using just like your powers of concentration and focus. Not so easy. So visualize as yourself as you're seated. And pretty much we're trying to recreate that ideal posture, like whatever healthy posture is. In general, the head is pretty much right over the shoulders. Visualize your head as it is three-dimensionally positioned in relationship to your neck, in relationship to your shoulders, not just the front of the body, but the sides and the back of the body. And use your powers of focus and visualization to kind of paint that three-dimensional image of yourself as your neck and shoulders are positioned, your arms, let your hands rest comfortably somewhere. And then visualize your torso, your collarbones, your shoulders, the spine itself, the ribs attached to it, all the organs protected by the rib cage. Visualize the pelvis, the pelvic basin, all the organs in the pelvic basin. Visualize your hips. Imagine and feel that you are rooted by your sitting bones into your chair, like you're plugged into some source of energy. Visualize your legs, your thighs, your knees, your calves, your shins, your ankles, your feet. And try to hold that image of yourself. One of the things that we do in a yoga class, no matter what kind of class it is that we do, is we use the breath. So you asked me to get you into the seated mountain pose. For a lot of us, the struggle is to prevent slouching. And by that, I mean preventing the head from kind of like falling forward. So try to get that vision, that feeling like you're being lifted up from the crown of the head upward. And you're rooted, you're grounded by your sitting bones, you're grounded by your feet. Whether or not you have sensation in the legs, whether or not you have legs, visualize yourself like that, whole, complete. And as you hold that image of yourself, just follow your breath. And notice, even though you're being still or trying to be still, you're always moving with the breath. Always. You have that spanda, that fluctuation, that inhale and that exhale. And a lot of times in the classes that I teach, I suggest a certain style of breathing, inhaling through the nose, but exhaling through the mouth. And I suggest this because it's a pretty easy way to keep the breath audible, so it's easier to follow. And what people find is that even just trying to be guided into a seated mountain pose, or to be guided into whatever, physical pose we're trying to do, a lot of us will just get distracted. And we'll have a hard time staying in the present moment. Why? Because the mind was designed to move. So we'll be thinking about the past. We'll be planning the future. But there's that sweet spot when we're in the present moment. So if we use that style of breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, it's just a way to keep ourselves present, to keep coming back to now.
So no matter where you are in life, what you're doing, whether you're stuck in traffic, whether you're stuck in a grocery store line, you can ground, you can what I say self cue. You can tell yourself, because look, I'm going to show you what I look like in Seated Mountain, right? And I'm going to show you what I do when I come out of it and slouch. Look at that. So anywhere you are, if you can cue yourself to be in Seated Mountain pose, you've done yoga that day. Spine is tall, you're grounded through your sits bones, your shoulders are back, your chest is open, you're breathing, you're opening your lungs, you're opening your ribs, you're doing yoga.
I think that's a really good reminder, because I think a lot of times people will say no to go try yoga or do yoga, but really it can be simple. It doesn't have to be as complex or challenging to get in that mindset or focus on yourself in that sort of way. So, really nice job explaining that.
Thank you. And I think also yoga can be, that reminds me, Megan, yoga can be, it doesn't have to be a long practice. Like it can be a very short practice if that's all you have. Um, and I think, even just speaking to what Natalie and Jane just said, um, you know, having like sitting tall and doing yoga, opening your shoulders, that can be a practice.
I
Yeah,
oh yeah, go for it.
I'm sorry.
No worries, go ahead.
I have friends with all different levels of injury. Some, are, some have quite a lot of movement, and I have friends that are, pretty much paralyzed from the neck down. you know so how can we tell someone that they're not doing yoga if they're not standing there, with their arms out? Like sometimes, we say, like, and some people can't even control their breathing, with those high level injuries. We're telling them to follow the breath, take a deep breath, and some people are like, hey, I can't control my breath, so it's like kind of, devastating to people that are used to, cueing, really physical movements, even if we think that we're making it, simple or simpler. And it takes a lot of compassion, and also like just we have to keep reminding ourselves that yes, that we are doing yoga. It's about the mindfulness.
Mhm. Um,
What about
how,
Scott? I see Scott.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Haven't heard from Scott. I don't know who's.
You had your Seated Mountain pose expression was powerful.
Hey, Scott.
Um, so I have limited experience with yoga. Um, I'm a big proponent of physical activity for people in wheelchairs, especially spinal cord injuries. And so I wrote a grant application that I shopped around to all the nonprofits and hospitals here in Orlando. And finally, the Orlando Health picked it up, and they got, and part of it was just addressing the transportation problem that a lot of people have getting to facilities, and all that. So a part of well, Craig T. Nielsen gave, or the Nielsen Foundation gave $50,000 for this program, and we did various videos for people to use so that they didn't have to travel. And so I participated in all the taping sessions, and including the 4 they did on yoga. Um, and the thing that struck me about it, I'm also a type 1 diabetic, and so I have a pump and a continuous glucose monitor. But for these taping sessions, I didn't want to be introducing insulin to my system. I didn't want to have that as a complication, and have to leave the set or whatever to treat a low or whatever. So what struck me was after the taping sessions were over, the 4 taping sessions, every time I had a steady drop in blood glucose, uh, and there was no insulin in my system at that time. And what a lot of people don't know, and this trips up a lot of type 1 diabetics, because they think anytime they eat, they got to take insulin. But working muscles actually take up blood glucose without any insulin. And if you think about it, that makes a little bit of sense, just because there's people that are diagnosed as type 1s, and we don't discover them as just a blob of flesh on the ground. Their muscles have been working just fine and all that. It's just they don't have insulin control for the rest of their life. So anyway, it just struck me that like other physical, much more what people think are physically active activities, where my blood glucose will drop without any insulin on board. I was having a same impact with yoga. And as a good proponent of this program, I've done the videos over and over again, and all that, but it's the same 4 routines in my life. I don't participate in another class or anything like that. But that's my extent with yoga.
Scott,
So,
I encourage you to go ahead, Urvashi.
so kind of something similar to what Scott said, because I mean, I teach a lot of breathing techniques, so that just helps with there's a lot of research supporting decreasing your respiratory rate, your blood pressure, and eventually the anxiety. So I try to teach them that breathing exercise. So like a lot of people have a lot of anxiety, and there's a common diagnosis which is called as a POTS syndrome, and people who are not able to activate their parasympathetic nervous system. So yoga helps with activating your parasympathetic nervous system by helping you breathe, stimulating the vagus nerve, and all that medical technical stuff. But so indirectly, like it helps you to reduce your heart rate, your blood pressure, your respiratory rate. And it's really worked well for the patients. At least that's a feedback that I have gotten over the last 10 years, that one of the best things that they could do was the diaphragmatic breathing exercises, which helped them when they were very anxious or when they were going in for surgeries, or so it really helps medically to control these parameters. So patients with like spinal cord injuries, or if you just need a moment to breathe, so just teaching, and the diaphragm is so closely located, but of course it depends on the level of injury too. But the diaphragm also strengthens your abdominal muscles. So just doing the diaphragmatic breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, does strengthens your abdominal muscles, helps with your posture. So lots of benefits, and that's all yoga actually. So learning the diaphragmatic breathing and then incorporating it with your poses helps with both like the physical aspect as well as the breath work.
There's something, I mean, it's a little bit more mystical, but there's something about the movement of energy in yoga. A lot of times I will stop mid practice and have people, we always talk about being the observer and the observed, and just doing a body scan, not so much about how your joints and muscles are feeling, but how the energy is feeling moving in your system. And Scott, I was really taken with your experience that, you know, yoga may not look as active as a bike ride or a swim or a kayak, but you're getting the same level of benefit. And there's got to be something about that movement of energy that takes a part in that glucose re-up take. So spread your word. I found your testimony really powerful, Scott. Thank you for that. And then the other thing, there's this line that Matthew Sanford says that I think that is so, so key. And it is so important. Everyone in this room, everyone in this chat room is moving towards disability. Each and every one of us, no matter how young or old you are. Just some of it reach it earlier than others. But throughout the lifespan, we are all moving towards disability. And I'll just share another thing. It was so powerful last week. I had the good fortune of spending 10 days with my 1-year-old grandson who is learning how to stand up and how to walk and how to hold things and how to eat. And I think about my clients who I practice yoga with, and they're trying to hold on to or regain what he's trying to attain. So the whole brilliance of the lifespan and whatever that might look at is very inspirational.
So true.
I love that. And I often think of that when I watch my nieces and nephews as well. And sometimes I'm like, okay, it's a challenge. Am I gonna regain it or are you
Yeah.
gonna learn it first?
Yeah.
Um, but yes, we are all moving towards disability. Um, and that's a good reminder.
I'm
Any
curious, I think with like we have 10 minutes left and I would love to just hear what's the reason like behind why you do what you do, and like if you could give a word of wisdom or something to someone that isn't into yoga yet, kind of what would hook you to maybe try it, or anything that you guys would like to say. But I think it'd be really great to just grow that community and really lead people into this world, as you guys all know how beneficial it is. But if there's something that you could share that others could listen to, maybe we'll start with whoever wants to go first.
So I can go.
Okay.
Um, so I think I always start the class by saying that any movement is a good movement. So, it doesn't have to be the perfect motion, but any motion is good. So, especially when I'm explaining the tree pose, and like I have the patients sit on the chairs and do the tree pose with their arms, but every tree is unique if you look around you. So every branch of the tree is also unique. So you if your arms are not going up in that perfect V shape or all the way straight up, your branches could be here today, or they could be wherever they can be. So I try to encourage that, and that I have learned from yoga. Like, it doesn't have to be those perfect bodies that you see advertised for yoga, but any movement that you can do. And if I put my PT hat on, it's always for patients who have spinal cord injuries. It's always about pressure relief, pressure relief. So moving side to side is pressure relief. So that's also a motion. So that's what I believe, and that's what I teach. That any movement is good. So if you practice yoga, trying to do that motion is also yoga.
I like that a lot. That's a good
Yeah.
one to follow.
Yeah, and I like the way you said pressure relief, moving side to side is pressure relief. Anything we do, whether we were active on a bike or sitting in our chair, we're super flex. So anything opposite movement, extending, opening things up. But to me, I think the biggest benefit of yoga is calming the mind and calming the vagus nervous system um, from the onslaught of the challenges of the world. It just has an incredible calming effect, whether it's through breath or movement, or being surrounded by other people that seek it. So for me, whether I'm teaching or practicing alone or taking a class, without a doubt, I always leave calmer and more uplifted. That's
Sure.
what keeps me at it. Yeah.
I love that. It's nice that you can carry and it helps your day and it kind of changes your perspective on whatever you're going to do next. So that's nice to hear. Natalie, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, when I lead my classes, I usually do it from, of course, focusing on the breath, employing that style of breath where the exhale is audible, just to keep bringing us back to the present moment, because it's all about, calming the mind. And then, getting someone to reflect, getting people to reflect on what's going on in their inner world. We start with an intention, like creating a goal for the class, and then like having a moment, like Jane was saying, several moments throughout the class where you tune in, do a body scan, kind of recall the intention that we started with. And then at the end of class, we go back to that intention, and we always end our class with an exercise of gratitude, and that is really the most important exercise of all. And just acknowledging what you're grateful for. And when we do the class in person, and even when we do it online, and to hear what people say that they're grateful for. There are very few people who are tongue-tied at that moment. Most people are like, I'll tell you what I'm grateful for, and they have something to say right away. But also, the idea of following the planes of movement, like you mentioned, flexion and extension, like a little bit of twisting. Sometimes we start with just turning the eyes from side to side, and then turning the head, and and then getting the torso to move, if possible, and then doing a lateral stretch, like stretching the sides of the neck, getting the shoulders to move, getting the rib cage to move, and even just like simple things like that. Those three planes of movement, like just like building a like using that as a format to branch off of, and it so that's something nice to just keep in mind. And most people do like those movements, like, and they're the kind of movements that make the seated mountain pose a little easier, like to take the effort out of it, because a lot of people, able-bodied people, we wind up kind of like slouching forward, because we get tight in the front of the body, we get tightness in the back of the body, the back of the neck, and it's a matter of finding that, like going through the extremes of the positioning, so that usually I guide the students through kinetic movement, and then we hold a stretch for a while after experiencing those two extremes in the kinetic movement. And it is a lot of most people can't sit still to meditate, but they say that all the physical poses were invented so that we can do exactly that, just so that we can feel supple enough and strong enough just to sit and meditate, so yeah. Shall I include the link to the class that I do every week?
Oh, please.
May
Yeah,
I?
that's
I'll
great.
do that. I'll just and you're all welcome to come. We do it on Facebook, on the Way Forward Foundation's Facebook page. Um,
I'd love to hear from Scott and Jeff. Jeff, why you want to get more involved with yoga, and Scott, why you keep on going back to those four and doing it on a regular basis. What keeps you going, and what is making you interested?
Mm.
Jeff or Scott, you're going to need to unmute.
Well, I'm just a big believer in uh, adaptive recreation, and so I'm always challenging myself, and I just have a rotation of things I go through. My two main sports are hand cycling and CrossFit, but I do other things. 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I did my 15th Ragbri, which is this year was only 406 miles of riding with
Only
my
400.
30,000 closest friends. And but I was one of 8 hand cyclists among all those upright bicyclists, uh, proving that we can do the exact same stuff they do. Then I took 3 weeks getting home, just having fun. But you know, you can't just hand cycle all the time. You got to do other things. So I swim. Um, like I said, do CrossFit, and yoga is just another one of those things that's in the rotation, so that I have something to do every day.
Awesome. How about you, Jeff?
Um, well, just a little bit about me. I'm 77 years old. I was injured in 1984, which is 41 years ago. I'm a T10 complete. I was on the United States disabled ski team for several years, 1992 Paralympics and 94 Paralympics in France and Norway. And I was fortunate to win 2 gold medals in France. Then I kind of regressed, only won 3 silver in Norway. But I retired from that, but I still work out in the gym and I hand cycle, not like the other guy, a lot less than that. But as I grow older, I'm seeing more importance of yoga, and I'm trying to learn more about it. Like I said, and I've copied down the notes of checking out some online support.
Yeah, Natalie just added hers, so you're going to be
Yep.
busy. You're going to be
Yep.
busy. Between Sassy and Natalie, you're going to be busy.
Jeff, I'm really happy that you took the time to come on and listen to this tonight. I think it's a step in the right direction.
Me
Yeah,
too.
I got a brand new sit ski from KBF a couple of
Oh,
years ago,
Woohoo!
and I gave it back to you guys because
Yes, you
I
just said,
tired.
did you send your bucket back? I think now that you're saying that, your name looks familiar. We have
Yeah.
it on our classifieds page,
Yep.
which is
so are
exciting.
you've hung up your bucket? No more sliding?
No, no more. I broke my arm actually on the Kelly Brush Foundation sit ski,
Oh,
and that kind of
sorry.
was. There are all sorts of reasons, but that one woke me up that maybe I'm a little too old to try this stuff bombing hills anymore. So again, more towards, I don't want to use the word sedentary, but I'll use it. Yoga seems like a pretty safe thing to get better at.
Hmm.
And I think I know it's the time, but I think it's I'm really inspired to say one more thing, and that is adaptive sports, regardless of your age or where you are in your lifespan, continually adapt and making decisions with grace, like you just did, Jeff. Say, okay, my skiing days are over. What else can I do? That is so key. You see so many people that are angry at the process. Those are the ones that become sedentary. You would say, okay, not doing that anymore. What am I going to do? Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I
Great
like the shooting
attitude.
sports, something I can do. I shoot on an all wheelchair trap team and a sporting clays team, and I love to fish. So
Jeff, we
all
actually
things
did a
still done.
call. We did a call last week or 2 weeks ago on shooting sports. So you should check it out, that recording. That one was a really interesting one as well. So,
That was the one with Michaela.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I've been watching some of those, and the one about fishing and the adaptive fishing and the rods and the adaptive rods and the adaptive. I mean, I was
I
blown
know.
away.
I'm learning so much on all these calls.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Well,
the one before shooting was fishing, so check those out on YouTube, Jeff.
we can just hop on these, you know.
Yeah, they're open for anyone to hop on, and then we share them with everyone on YouTube. So they get quite a bit of views on there, which is really nice to just provide this education in another manner. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but free. Hop on whenever you guys want. And I appreciate you guys so much for joining tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys. And hopefully this will pop this on our YouTube channel so people continue to learn from all of you and learn from this discussion.
Thank you so
And
Thank you
just
so
one
much.
more thing. I know for me, I mean, I love what Natalie and Versace said, but I learned more from Jeff and Scott, and that's always what it's all about, right?
True. True.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Such
All
a
right.
nice call tonight, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Good night.
Bye. Good
See you
night.
soon, Arashi, too. I miss seeing you. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Night.